Please welcome Professor Danielle Vogel. Professor Vogel's career began in the halls of Congress, where she spent nearly a decade working on climate policy. Later, she joined the U.S. Department of Justice, enforcing environmental protections through the Clean Air Act. But after years of pushing for systemic change from the inside, she realized it was too slow paced for her, and that the planet will not wait. So she took a leap. 12 years ago today, on Earth Day of 2013, the Professor Vogel opened Glenn's Garden Market, a climate-motivated grocery store in DC. But Glenn's wasn't just a store. It became a place where everyone who stepped through the doors could make an impact. Through Glenn's, Professor Vogel launched over 90 local food businesses, of which more than 50 were woman-owned and 24 were founded by people of color. In fact, one of those businesses was Snacklins, which was founded by one of today's speakers, Samy Kobrosly. Welcome, Samy.
Thank you.
The dedication to sustainability that I'm describing doesn't happen by accident. It happens when a founder is deeply committed to values and backs them up with action, just like Lara Lozser is doing at Hummus Goodness and Gabi Febres is doing at Arepa. Lara and Gabi, welcome back to AU. We're so excited to learn from you today. Please join me in welcoming Professor Danielle Vogel, along with Samy Kobrosly, Lara Lozser, and Gabi Febres. All four of them were AU alumni, and all four are true game changers in sustainability.
Thank you, Bud. That was beautiful. I've had a chance to work with Abraham 3 times, and it's so awesome to see him building his public speaking confidence. Way to go. Thank you. All right, so let's start with a really easy softball. We'll just toss it around the horn real quick to get warmed up. Maybe starting with Lara. Can you guys each tell us a little bit about your own entrepreneurial identity and what you hope to accomplish when you started your businesses?
So I'm Lara Lozser. I graduated from Kogod in '89, so I'm a little bit older than my compatriots here. But nevertheless, I'm from Michigan, and I worked in corporate Oracle software for a number of years, moved to Germany, came back and was like, now what am I going to do? So I joined a friend who got my order wrong. She made hummus. And I went and joined her because I thought, you really got to get this straight. We got to do better than that. And we founded a small hummus company out of Michigan. And I think from a sustainability perspective, we're always looking for ways, whether it is in who we hire, where we get our products, how quickly we go to market, the type of recycling we do, how quickly and lean we try and keep our manufacturing. So we're always looking at sustainability. And even though we don't necessarily call it outright, it's always a focus, because as an entrepreneur, you want every penny, you want every dime, you want every minute for something else that you know you need to do.
So my name is Gabi Febres. I graduated in 2012. I actually studied audio production, so nothing like what I'm doing today, but I focus a lot on the cultural sustainability. We're very focused. My business is Arepa. Some of you may know it. We have a restaurant, 14th and L. So we're local. And we really focus on keeping that cultural vibe for Venezuelans mainly. That's why my business got started. I'm an accidental entrepreneur in that sense, because I wanted to stay close to my roots. But in the literal sense of sustainability, I think we really focus on, you said, like, every single penny matters, especially in the times that we live in now. And you really have to think about every move you make, because it's like a domino effect. And I see sustainability kind of like Darwin may have seen natural selection. Like, if you can't be financially sustainable, you're simply going to disappear. So I think that's my approach.
I'm Samy Kobrosly. Go AU. Woo woo. I created a company called Snacklins here locally in DMV. Got our start at Glenn's Garden Market. And since then, I've gone on to work with brands such as Wrap Snacks, launched a new brand with them called Do the Right Thing Snacks, worked with a bunch of other kind of companies throughout that. But really the one thing that I noticed, because with my first company, it started out almost as like a bet, right? It was a bet like, hey, can you make this? And we made it. But then upon seeing the landscape, I realized that the current food system just wasn't sustainable. as far as holding on to their customers, right? Even a drug dealer knows you don't want to kill your customers, but somehow these food industry, like these food companies, are just using the worst ingredients, the easiest process to do. And I realized that, wow, there's this huge opening in using certain techniques that have already been out there. Like, we didn't invent the wheel, you know what I mean? Techniques that are already out there, ingredients that are already out there that we can use to help sustain those customers, to make their lives better. Because if the customer's life is better, like, without the customers, we have no business. And we kind of really took that mindset and really tried to focus on that. And I think that's really helped me throughout my years in the snacking industry, now almost over a decade now in the snacking industry. But really understanding, kind of thinking about it from the perspective of that customer and how do you sustain that customer coming back over and over and over again.
So actually, speaking of that, I haven't told you this, but we eat Snacklins in 2 of my undergrad classes. Excellent. And we do it in the context of a conversation about building customer relationships. So we specifically create a hypothetical around, if we were you and we were thinking about how we were going to start to develop those relationships before we launched the brand, where would we look to launch, how would we explain the brand and what we were trying to accomplish, and how would we start to build those sort of early adopter brand evangelicals. Can you tell us how you actually did it? So obviously, I know who your first customer was. That was me. Why did you pick Glenn's, and what did you think you were going to accomplish, and then sort of where did you go from there?
Yeah, I think, so obviously when we got a chance to be with Glenn's, at that point, I had actually created Snacklins. It was supposed to be a vegan pork rind, which I know sounds ridiculous nowadays, especially coming from a Muslim, but it was a vegan pork rind. That's how I did it. But then as we got in the stores, I realized, and one of the biggest things I learned from someone was, there's a lot of people out there doing me search, right? And not enough research, right? Because people think it's in their gut. Like, I know better than everyone else, which honestly, that's what makes us all entrepreneurs, is somewhere deep in our heads, we think that we know better than everybody else. But at some point, we had to actually go and do the research. And I remember talking to customers, and I was asking, like, a lady that walked through the aisle, I was like, why are you picking up this bag of chips? Are you an pork rind lover that now is vegan? Like, maybe you have a religious aspect to it? She goes, oh no, simple ingredients. Oh, okay. And then you start to kind of adjust your pitch based on that. And we're constantly out there doing demos. Like, demos in CPG, that's where it's at. 10 years in, we've been offered to host concerts, to be with this celebrity. I mean, we do like snacks for Snoop Dogg, right? For God's sakes. And even then, the best way to get that product out there is to do a demo. Dollar for dollar return on investment, because not only are you getting to taste it, but you're also getting that immediate feedback. And the difference between us as small entrepreneurs versus those huge multi-billion companies is that we can pivot so easily. And we took that to our advantage, knowing that we were small and nimble, and that the second that a customer's like, you know what, I really like this because of this, boom, we changed the packaging, made sure to focus on simple ingredients. What else do you like? It's only 100 calories for the bag. Great, let's eat the whole bag then. Why are we just saying one serving size when we can do that? Like, we constantly were changing based on what the customers told us. And even to this day, as we try out new products, as we release new brands, we're always putting it out there and saying, what do they say? And I tell people, like, don't be nice, like, hurt my feelings. Like, that's how I become a better entrepreneur. That's how I get a better product, is for them in that pure honesty of the customer, and then taking that in. A lot of people like to say, well, the data shows this. Data is great. And we use that to get into stores. We use that to get into all the big box stores, the grocery chains, all of that. When it comes down to making a product, you need to talk to that direct customer. And the one thing I've always learned from the customer is that they have 2 things above anything else they want: price and delicious. Everything else, non-GMO, organic, vegan, keto, you name it, it doesn't matter. It has to be delicious, and it has to be affordable. And I know a lot of investors, a lot of people out there will say, oh, no, we can just increase the price. But that's when we come back to that customer, right? And really focus on what that customer says, and knowing that is a no-go.
Customer discovery, guys. You didn't hear it here first, but you heard it here again. It's super critical to the entrepreneurial process. Thank you. All right, so Gabi, we have a question for you from one of my students, Theo. Thank you so much, Theo Papadopoulos, for your question. So he is asking, your work bridges cultural preservation and environmental responsibility, a perspective often overlooked in sustainability discussions. Arepa Zone celebrates Venezuelan culture through traditional recipes, but sourcing authentic ingredients like pre-cooked cornmeal or queso de mano can have a large carbon footprint depending on how it's transported. So how do you reconcile preserving cultural authenticity with sustainable sourcing, and what role do you see immigrant-owned businesses playing in considering sustainability while honoring heritage?
Okay, that's a loaded question. That's tough because I have to fight between really trying to stay true to, you mentioned queso de mano. That's like what makes a cachapa a good cachapa. I don't want to put mozzarella on there because it's just not, that's not it, right? And you're right, we bring that from Florida, so it's not very sustainable. But I think my business partner and I, what we try to do is learn. We've invested a lot in bringing people here from Venezuela, or people that are masters in certain recipes, bring them here and teach us how to do it so that we can make it locally. So when we were once buying certain baked goods from a manufacturer down in Miami, we now are making those baked goods here. Yeah, it costs us maybe $5,000 to bring the best baker from Maracaibo here. But that investment has really paid off towards, reaching a more sustainable business. I think the cultural part of our business is what keeps it alive. We're 11 years old, and that's the reason why our business started, because people in this area were really looking for a place where Venezuelan culture could be celebrated and where we could, as Venezuelans, spread that, culture, gastronomy, everything to people that have never tried an arepa before. And our goal was always to make the arepa the new household name or the new taco. And I think we've gone pretty far in that sense, and that speaks towards what we're really trying to achieve, and it's maintaining those recipes alive. Like my grandmother's recipes are a very big part of our business, and we're trying to pass that down and keeping it alive even as we grow. I mean, we're almost 100 employees in now, and I mean, for these folks that might not be a lot, but it's a big achievement, and I think being able to still grow while maintaining that alive is what keeps the customers coming back, kind of going towards what Sam was saying about focusing on the customer and what they want. If we try to be sustainable while still maintaining the culture alive, I think that's what keeps people coming back.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you. Is Janet Kang here? I don't see her yet. Janet, all right, the next question's coming from Janet. Thank you, Janet. This one's for Lara. So Janet is asking, Hummus Goodness is committed to using fresh ingredients and avoiding artificial preservatives. So naturally, your products have a short-ish shelf life. What strategies have you used to minimize food waste, both under your roof, so within your operations, and also with regard to your retail and distribution partners?
Several things. Thank you for the question. So I would say, because there's simple ingredients and there's simple recipes, this goes back to the cultural heritage component, right? We couldn't find a hummus that didn't have preservatives in it. Well, I'll give you a little secret. White vinegar is a natural preservative. So in lieu of a citric acid or a sorbate, polysorbate or whatnot, and you name them and they're out there, preservative, we use items that are natural or part of the product itself. So lemon juice is also a preservative of sorts. And so now all of a sudden, you keep the recipe really clean, you keep it balanced, and it is a very, very specific percentage balance that you have to have. And for us, we cook it in a way that we have a pH balance, and that pH balance is going to tell me how long I get. Then we have a couple of very specific processes that, again, will lengthen it a little bit more, but we really are trying to ensure that the cleanest recipes, the simplest products, and the products do what they're intended to do in nature, gives us kind of that ability to be more sustainable. Yeah. Can I just add something to she has 100 employees, we have 3. So, so it's a really interesting, it's a different way of doing business. I am at a co-packer, and the co-packer is very culturally diverse. Very. But they're also in that heritage-minded resourcefulness of ensuring we're working with the community. And it goes back to the heritage of hummus. And in my particular case, my business partner is Lebanese, and so our recipes are Lebanese-based recipes. So I just thought it was really interesting. She's like, 100 employees. I'm like, I have 3. So
Well, but you have a ton of people at the co-packer.
not a lot. No, we have 7 total that are.
That's awesome.
That's it. So we try to keep.
I need to.
But that's such a good point, right? So that's such a good point. You guys see 3 successful entrepreneurs sitting up here, and you make assumptions about what that means, right? Even amongst our own group, we're making assumptions about what that means. So I'm going to go off script for a second, right? So like, I know that a lot of our students struggle with imposter syndrome, right? And the way I tend to respond to that is nobody knows what they're doing until they do it, and then they know how to do it, right? And I think we've all walked that path. Would you guys be willing to get vulnerable for a second and share a story about a time that you were wrong? Maybe a time that you failed? Every day. It's every day. It's the only certainty in entrepreneurship. So maybe one where like you took a flyer, but you learned something from it, or you ended up with somebody on your team who you weren't expecting, or the other way around. Show them that we're not as sterling as it might look from the other side.
So we started out in a church kitchen, and we had mom volunteers. And I was a mom volunteer. We kind of did this. We went into COVID not knowing where we were going, and it got us out of the house. We did it very reasonably with masks and everything. But we had grocery store business that went through the roof, and we donated beyond what you could imagine. We probably donated as much as we sold to the local hospitals. So then we got a big order from a grocery store coming out of COVID, one of the largest in the Midwest, called Meijer. And we were like, this is great. Started down the path to build their orders. And we got to a point where we didn't have enough refrigerator space. So hummus needs refrigerator space. So we thought, okay, well, there's a co-packer, a neighboring town, we'll go out there. And they turned out to be the absolute worst decision we've ever made. They thought they were going to buy us. Then they said, well, we're only going to give you access to this type of facility over these many hours. You're not going to have the ingredients you want. We're going to do it our way with our process because you're in our house. And we were like, what makes us different is our recipes. The way we make it makes us different. And we literally had to go out and hire a truck, bring it over, call the police and tell them, can you please come stand out front of this facility? We are going to leave. We're going to write them a check for what we owe them, but we're afraid because it's the 2 entrepreneurs and we had a staff of about 5. We literally moved everything out within 2 hours, and we're like, now where do we make our order for next week? So it's a really, really challenging business, and you have to put your foot forward. You have to say, okay, that's done. How do I solve this problem, and how do I solve it today? What is going to move us forward? What's going to help us? What's going to bring us more money or get us to another retailer? So,
can I actually stick with that one really fast? Because we've got another student question that's related from Ben Novian. Ben, back here. Thank you. How do you know when a partnership or an expansion opportunity is kind of too far from your mission to pursue it? So how do you kind of square growth opportunities with mission consistency?
So that's a really hard one. And it is hard because, so for us, we started the Midwest. Our goal was sustainability in the Midwest and really keeping focus there instead of going nationwide straight away and going to something like a Sprouts or a Whole Foods straight away. And we had a couple of different opportunities where somebody was like, oh, well, we'll get you in over here. It's, around the corner in Charlotte, North Carolina. Well, it's not our area. And we really took 2 routes. We brought in advisors that helped us stay true to our mission, always asked us the hard questions, still do today. And every time we thought we were going to go and try something, is it part of where you're going to go? Is it really part of your big, we have what are called BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals, right? And as part of our BHAG, he's like, is that part of your BHAG? I mean, your BHAG for 25 is X, Y, and Z. Is that meet what you're trying to accomplish? And if the answer is no, then you really have to take a step back and say, if you're answering yes, why are you answering yes? Where is it going to take you? Is it money, time? Where are all these things going to go? So it's a really, we're always trying to square up every time you turn around. Is that item, that goal, that request really going to move the needle? And if so, why and how?
That's also, it's a great use of a well-crafted vision statement, right? So like constantly comparing the expansion opportunities against your collective intention for the business. All right, so Gabby, we were joking earlier that people are outsourcing therapy to AI, but we're going to outsource therapy to the Founders Forum. Tell us a failure story, my friend.
Well, I was just thinking with the previous question, a us restaurant owners, we are sort of at the mercy of landlords. And our first big thing that we did was we won a business plan competition called Launchpad. I spoke in front of like 500 people. I don't know how I did it. It was scary. Yeah, you judged it. And we won the opportunity to be inside Union Market for a year, free rent. It was pretty amazing because we did so well that they kept us on, right? And then, I was in Mexico for a wedding for Daniela, owner of Colada Shop. It was her wedding. And I was getting off the plane, and I get a call from my broker, who tells me we were in the middle of renegotiating our lease at Union Market. And I get a call from my broker that said that they were no longer going to renew us. While they were, for like 6 or 7 months, we were building out our La Cosecha location, which is a block away, but we had spent, it's just crazy. You can look it up, there's an article. But we spent a lot of money putting the hood up and all that, and the day after the hood was up at our new location, which was a brand new concept that this landlord and developer wanted us to build, specifically for them, the day after the hood was up, which once that hood is up on the wall, it becomes part of the property per the lease, $50,000 hood. Once that was up, we get the call the next day that said, oh, by the way, we're not renewing your Union Market location. So we were counting on, I don't see this as a failure, but I think I could have handled it differently. We were counting on that location to sort of cross-market our brand new concept that we created specifically for these people. And I get the call, I'm hopping off the airplane, my broker's telling me this. They had delivered a letter, translated into Spanish, an eviction notice. Like, I wasn't even there. And that's how my employees found out that they were no longer renewing our lease. So my instinct was to go to the press. And I had a friend who worked, I think, for the Washingtonian at the time. And I called her and I was like, this is happening, like, what do I do? She's like, I can, But essentially I kind of burned a bridge there because, you're dealing with these millionaires that own the city pretty much. But I was so hurt because, number one, that was our first brick and mortar, and it meant so much to me, especially because that presentation was probably the most difficult thing I ever prepared for. So personally, it was our first brick and mortar. It meant like I had successfully achieved something, and as an immigrant, my whole goal had always been to prove my parents that my degree at AU somewhere was worth it, even though I studied music and audio production, and that I would be successful no matter what. So they they bruised my ego. And, I went to the press, and it was just a crazy time. And ultimately, we still do well over there. But then COVID happened, and that space was empty for like a year. So, I think, failures, as a Latino woman, I think a lot of times I fit the stereotype, I'm very emotional, and a lot of people see that as a fault, but I think that's what has brought my business to life and kept it alive, and that's what I bring into the business every day. But it was a very traumatic time for me, dealing with just the vulnerability of having to plead to these people to let us stay open. And we deal with that every day. I don't treat these challenges the same way anymore because of the lessons learned, but it's something that is very top of mind for me.
So many takeaways from that answer. So first of all, disputes with the landlord are a great reason to bring in a lawyer, right? That can be very helpful. Secondly, the court of public opinion isn't always the proper venue for litigating your frustrations. Sometimes it is, but it's not always the proper venue. Samy, can I approach this one a little bit from a slightly different angle with you?
Absolutely.
All right. So as many of you know, Samy went on Shark Tank and was able to secure a $250,000 investment from Mark Cuban for 5% equity, 5% advisory shares. Amazing. But When you walked into the tank, it didn't quite go to plan.
Oh my God, let me tell you about the biggest disaster in the history of disasters, right? So if you don't know anything about Shark Tank, like they just kind of, it's very vague, and then all of a sudden they just tell you, hey, you're coming to LA for a week, right? So then you're just quarantined in this hotel, waiting for them to get you out. They brought me out one time to do rehearsal, and I nailed the rehearsal. Like every other entrepreneur had to stick around. They're like, Sammy, you can go, man. Go eat tacos, do your thing. This is LA, baby, enjoy. And I was like, awesome. So then I come back finally now that was on a Monday. Now it's a Friday, and I finally get the call, hey, you're going to pitch today, right? I was the one that every producer was like, we have no problems with this guy. He's going to be great. Not even worried about him. They just like stuck me in the green room by myself, just let me chill. Like no one was trying to hype me up, nothing, okay? They painted on hair to cover my bald spot. It was fantastic, right? And then I went up there, and just like in every, high school movie on Disney, the spotlight hit me. Oh, and I froze. I froze so bad that I forgot my entire pitch, right? That I just started to wing it, which is what you see on the screen right now. If you look it up, like Snacklins on Shark Tank, that was me winging it. And then the worst part was, everyone knows the whole point about Shark Tank is you say, I have this company, here's my product. Dude, I forgot to give them my product. Like I just straight up forgot to, and I'm selling chips, and I messed up so bad that, and like the producers tell you they record it live. They don't edit it. They don't do it. They try to record those cut out little bits and pieces, but they don't let you like start over again. I messed up so bad that at one point, Mark Cuban, when I go, he goes, dude, you didn't even tell us what you're asking for yet, like what the investment opportunity is, and where the hell are these chips? And so like if you watch it, there's like some weird cuts in there because I guess I was a nice guy, so the producers didn't hate me too much, and they made me look not as stupid. But yeah, I mean, I ate it. Like I ate it so bad, but that was such a good experience. Like I still like, we laugh about it now. And I think, yeah, I think that when we talk, like I work in manufacturing primarily, right? And we go in every day with like the Parks and Recreation quote from Andy, like the show must go wrong. Yeah. Like if you don't go in, like that's how we maintain our mental, our mental stability, knowing that things are going to go wrong, right? It's always going to go wrong. And it doesn't faze me anymore. Like we'll have these huge mess ups. I mean, recently we had a pitch with Costco for a new brand that we're releasing, right? With like the founder of Wrap Snacks and the founder of Zapp's Potato Chips. We're releasing this new healthy brand. We had a meeting with Costco. In our facility, they didn't even they forgot to season the chips. And nobody knew that samples that were sent to like our broker for Costco were unseasoned until I got a sample and I was like, oh God. So then I have to call up my seasoning guy and I go, send me like 4 pounds of this organic ranch seasoning to my house, and I'm there tearing open sample bags, spraying them, re-seasoning them, like doing everything just so I could get it to the buyer. And the buyer had no idea about all the hell and stress we went through, right? And I think that's just, yeah, but that's just what you got to do. You got to fake it till you make it, right? You don't get frustrated. Like the show must go wrong. So Murphy's Law is real, y'all.
As an entrepreneur, you've got to be a duck, right? You're gliding serenely above the surface, and below the water, you're paddling.
Just paddling like crazy, yeah.
But America got to watch you make it work in real time, and it was a real triumph of grit over adversity.
It was fantastic. I don't think my parents believed that I was they didn't believe me until they saw me on TV, which anyone who has foreign parents, that's like, that sounds about right. Like, yeah, 100%. Not until I was on TV, like, oh, look, my son, he's a smart Cuban now. And like, that's it. And now I've been like a successful entrepreneur ever since.
Yeah,
so, despite all the failures after that. So
it's just part of it, man. It's what we eat for breakfast, Yep. Fortifies us. All right, so Gabi, we've got a question for you from another student. This one's from Tomas. Is Tomas here? Oh, no points for Tomas. No, he'll get the points, don't worry. All right, so Tomas was asking, in class, we've been talking about how great entrepreneurs build businesses driven by purpose and personal identity. You've certainly done that at Arepa Zone. Although you weren't physically present for much of what has happened in Venezuela in recent years, would you say that the situation in your home country has inspired you to grow Arepa Zone for reasons that go beyond just making a profit? And how has the political and economic climate in Venezuela shaped you as an entrepreneur?
Ooh, okay. So my dad lives in Caracas. He's here today, but he lives there. So I'm very much connected to the situation back home. And I think I've always tried to stay close to Venezuela, even when I was a student here. I play the flute, and I majored in music and audio production. So when I would go into my my flute lesson, my professor, I would tell him, okay, for this recital, I want to play this song. And he's like, what's that? I'm like, oh, it's a Venezuelan piece. And he's like, but you should play Mozart. I'm like, no, I want to play this. So that's always been a very big part of my identity. I think today I can say that I see the connection with Venezuela through my employees the most. And I can I always say that we're sort of like a thermometer to measure, how many Venezuelans are in the city. A lot of times, like the politicians that were doing polling and stuff back when we had an embassy, and we had relationships still with Venezuela, they would ask me, hey, how many people are in your email list? Because they wanted to get an idea. We joke around and we say that we're the official Venezuelan embassy in DC now. I think that, having a place where Venezuelans could gather has been always very important to us, but also being able, I said it before, but like spreading that to other folks who've never tried our food is very important. And I think if you look at our employees, it's not a coincidence that 90% of the people that apply to work with us are Venezuelans. They want to stick to their culture and their people, and that's just our workforce. I talk to them every day, and I think that's how I connect now. I have less and less family in Venezuela now, and it's hard to stay in touch with that reality every single day. But the economic situation there has shaped me. I mean, my whole life. There's pictures of me, like 10 years old, at a protest in Miami for Venezuela, and I think like that fight, that struggle to always try to fight for the right thing is also how I deal with my business, right? I like to do things the right way. I don't like to cut corners. And that sort of stems from the same idea of, we have a government back home that's doing these nasty things to its citizens. How can I be a better person and better represent the Venezuelan community? Because now people say Venezuela and they think of all these negative things you're seeing in the news. Even DC has been, people blame all the bad things happening on Venezuelans now. So like we have to work harder as a company to make sure that we're coming forward as, good people.
It's tough. All right, so we just have a couple more questions, and then we're gonna open it up to you guys. So get those wheels turning. Next one's for you, Lara. So when making business decisions, founders can definitely fall into the trap of thinking in just very traditional ROI terms, obviously. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the benefits that you've gained from investing in sustainability beyond the basic math. So maybe in terms of things like reputational advantage or customer relationship maintenance.
Good question. So I think from our perspective, we realize that sustainability across every piece of our business is critical. So starting from a chickpea from a bean perspective, we are doing glyphosate free. Why not organic, everybody says? Well, organic costs exponentially more, requires exponentially more land, and all of the surrounding farms have to be further away. So we're trying to take a shorter route to market with that. We also look at the cultural diversity of our employees and the markets and hopefully where we're serving and finding or trying to find the right way to bring a cleaner, better, healthier for you product, because we want to ensure that we're getting kind of the best out of, that's what we want. We want a better product. I want a better hummus product. I couldn't find it on the market. My business partner couldn't find it on the market. So we built it and made it, and everything we're doing now revolves around that. And am I off track of your question too far?
Have you noticed a relationship perhaps with people wanting to work with you because of your sustainability commitments, or vendors wanting to do business with you because of them?
Yes, thank you. One contract we got in the fall, which is a very, very large contract, which we're just starting to explore, is with an organization called Food Buy. So if you've ever heard of Arepa or Sodexo, they are one of those. They're called a GPO. And for instance, Chartwell's here on campus, they're part of Food Buy. So from us, part of the reason they brought us in, and one of the main, we're shocked beyond belief. They want us to be their classic hummus of choice across 8 huge buying organizations. And from our perspective, we just got here to that game, right, into the food buy world. We just got here. We just finished our contract in October, November, and all of a sudden, within 6 months, we're now being asked to be their, multi-tens of thousands of cases a year product of choice, which really sends the message that when you do it right, you do it the right way. And the reason they wanted us, we're the cleanest hummus out there. And they want that sustainability. They want the healthier, better for you. They like the fact that we're doing it the right way and across everything, recyclables, everything. So
Nice. Thank you. And congratulations. All right, Samy, my friend. The first time you delivered Snacklins to a grocery store, it arrived in Ziploc bags with stickers that you had printed on your desktop printer. I know this because I received the delivery.
No, I remember I did them too. Yeah, I was there.
Cool. So last year, I bought Snacklins at an airport in Los Angeles. So how far we have come, indeed. And I'm wondering if you could shed some light on how you managed to maintain your commitments to sustainability while you scaled your brand, and sort of how you've overcome the adversity in the process.
I think that a huge part of it was I was just young and dumb, right? Like I didn't really know better. It was my first kind of foray into food production. So, I remember being at like what used to be 3 Stars Brewery, and someone from Glenn's Garden was like, yo, if you put these in bags, put nutritional panels on them, we could sell them at Glenn's. And I did everything. I got on Amazon, ordered some plastic bags, went to the FedEx, started just printing labels, sticking them on there. Like I had a dog at the time, so there'd be like dog hairs sometimes underneath the labels. And I'd be like, oh, I got to throw that one away.
Not in the bag, guys.
Not in the bag, but
inside
underneath the label. I'm like, oh, I'll throw that one away, right? We had to produce. So like I was going to like a restaurant in Adams Morgan that I worked at, that I was a server at, and I was convincing them to let me use their fryer in their kitchen after they closed at midnight, right? So I could just go in there and make products. And I think that kind of understanding was part of me was sustaining, like I want to sustain this company so much, right, that I would do anything and everything I could. And then as I kind of grew and as I learned, I've always kind of treated this as like college all over again. Like every day I have to learn something new. I had no idea about roll stock, dye lines, corrugate, all these other things that you don't realize that goes into that food system, right? That you had no idea, but you have to learn that. And I think that, understanding that and learning and seeing, oh, wow, there are options. Wow, maybe if I make my bag a little bit bigger, I could have less waste. I would have less breakage. And that's all kind of part of that sustainability that we worked on. And I think, it's about learning every day and just realizing that even though you're the boss, if anything, that just means that you're the dumbest person in the room, right? Like you have to learn more than anybody else now because of that. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense. All right, so as you guys just put the finishing touches on your questions, we're just gonna go around really fast, and I'd love for each of you to share some advice for our aspiring social impact-oriented entrepreneurs in the room.
I can start off first with this one. Yeah. I think this is something that nobody thinks about, but over 10 years of owning the business, being by myself, being with the team, having that team reduced, having that team expand again, right? The one thing that you really need to focus on is really, before sustainability in the product and the environment and your business plan, it's in yourself. Like, this is mentally draining. Like, I had very depressed nights. We had huge losses that I would sit there and just cry, and I didn't want to be around anymore, right? And there is nobody, when you're an entrepreneur, you feel like you're on an island by yourself, right? You feel like you're doing everything by yourself. So really taking that step back, taking that focus, right? And really focusing on your own mental health, right? Finding other entrepreneurs that you can discuss. Hey man, I wanted to quit yesterday. Like I never wanted to do this again. Like I have a friend of mine that he calls me whenever he quits. And then the next day I call him and he's like, all right, I'm back, baby. Right? And so but that's just part of it. You know what I mean? And I just think really they don't tell you that. They don't I feel like, I didn't learn any of that in any business class I had, but really focusing on yourself and make sure that you are happy, that you are keeping yourself, doesn't mean you're going to be successful every day. You're going to have failures, but at least making yourself mentally healthy for those, for those outcomes.
Yeah, I think that's super important. About 3 years ago, I was so stressed, I lost like a huge chunk of my hair, and like the next day, I was like, that's it. I signed up for a gym. I did all the things to really focus on my mental health. And you said something very important, like you're the boss, and that sometimes means you're the dumbest person in the room. I mean, there's so much truth to that. Like, I fake it till I make it almost every day, because I have a team of people that think I know what I'm doing, but I didn't go to business school. I'm not a chef, and I have 7 restaurants and opening up an 8th. Like, it's every single day is a learning opportunity, and I think being able to just focus on the resources you have around you and really, have that friend that you can have on speed dial, get a mentor, and I think this is the piece of advice that I give everyone now, 11 years in. Get a good accountant and a good attorney. There's so many mistakes we made just by signing a contract. We were so hungry to get into XYZ space, and we just signed it off, and then the landlord comes, oh, but your lease says this, but you signed off on that. Like, that will never happen to me ever again. Sometimes you want to cut corners and you say, maybe nowadays you can plug that into ChatGPT and say, hey, read this lease and tell me if this landlord wants to screw me or not. And ChatGPT could probably tell you. That wasn't around when, 5 years ago. But I think, the mental health point is super important. Nobody's going to tell you that. You just have to make sure you're good, make time for yourself, because this industry, especially the food industry, can be so lonely, and so draining. People always say, oh, you have a restaurant, you're probably like a slave to your restaurant. I mean, not so much now, but I was, and it's because now I'm unfazed, like you said. Like, we've been through so much that nothing can surprise me. Like, my business partner and I, we have a joke. He calls me, he's like, Gabi, you ready? Are you sitting down? I'm like, what now? He's like, okay. We joke that it's like Netflix season 12 of Arepa. I'm like, what now? He's like, oh, so-and-so did this. I'm like, oh, okay. It doesn't surprise me anymore. But you have to go through all the motions, and really be in that nitty-gritty of the business to reach this point. Like, there's really no successful entrepreneur, I think, that hasn't gone through, like, you can't just show up and say, I have $2 million, I want to build a restaurant. Like, you're not going to be as successful as I am just because you have money, because I actually, there's sweat, blood, and tears literally invested in my business. So
hard to follow these two, because it is every day. I would add, you mentioned mentors. We have strategic advisors. I have a business partner, and we are literally a yin and a yang, 100%. She is fiery and like this, and she has no business background, and she's a teacher, but she's got great research skills, and I have business skills, and we both come to the middle, and we both disagree, and then we have to figure out who agrees with us, and so we go to the advisors, or we work it out between us, and we figure out what is best for the business moving forward, because we both might be right about 80%. So we come together to make a good, solid, strong partnership. And the mental health, I can't even stress enough how important it is. You have to be able to let it out, get it out, and work it out. And whether that's with a very good lawyer or a very good accountant, because you definitely need both of those, it's really to make sure that you look forward to what's happening next and how can you get there with the right attitude, the right positivity, and the best possible way to get your business to move forward. So.
That's really great advice. So build partnerships, whether formal or informal, because you need to find those complementary skill sets that enhance what you're doing. Make sure to care for your mental health, because entrepreneurship is a lonely path to walk, my friends. Yeah, for sure. And it gets better, it seems so bad the first time you go through it, but then you just gain experience and perspective. And, I was 3 months into owning my grocery store, and I called my husband in this just state of panic. And I said, when is it going to get better? And he said, it's never going to get better. You're just going to get better at dealing with it. Right. And so it's just, you guys, you're at the beginning of your journey, but this perspective will come with experience. And the only way to figure it out is to take risks, right? To be smart about it and to build partnerships that are going to hold you accountable. But you got to walk the walk to get to get down the path. Okay, we would love to take more of your questions. We've got about 10 minutes. Who wants to go first? John Burns in the back.
Hi there. First of all, I wanted to thank everybody for attending today. I have a question for Samy. First of all, I do want to say I really enjoy your product. I come to class almost every day with a bag of Snacklins. Professor Vogel can agree with that. And I wanted to ask you, how did, like, when was the moment you knew you were the person to solve the problem you solved? Like, I'm not really sure how to phrase this question, but how did you know that you were the person to solve what you solved?
Honestly, it was evolving, right? Like I said, this kind of started off as like a bar bet to make a vegan pork rind, okay? And we didn't really know what problem we were solving for yet. But then as we did that research, right, as we talked to the consumers, as we were out there, you know, you're talking years later, I just kind of looked back and I was like, oh, dang, I think we just solved a problem, right? And like my partner, like John, right, who was with me at Snacklins, he always said this, like, you know, you're not creating a product, you're solving a problem for a consumer. And so we always say, what problem does your product solve, right? And it's not that, oh, it tastes better. Like, that's not a problem. Like, that's not a problem, right? But what problem does your product solve? And I think that it took us years. Like, you're not going to know this immediately. Like, I tell entrepreneurs, like, it could take you a couple years to figure out what it is, but you're still working, you're doing that. And I think just at some point, you know, we realized that our key was that we make healthy snacks, right, using ingredients that no one else wants to touch. So going kind of forward to my new endeavor, right, which is a new like vegetable snack brand that we're doing, we realized that gap there was that no one was using fresh ingredients for any veggie straw, any veggie chip out there. They're not even vegetables, right? And so we knew that here's the problem that we can solve. Now with Snacklins, they were ahead of the curve because at that point, nobody even knew that a veggie straw didn't contain vegetables, right? They all thought it was the greatest thing ever, right? Marketing. But now we know here's the problem that we're solving. So we're releasing like a brand new line of chips, right, that have like 30% fresh vegetable compared to 0% of everyone else. And I think that me understanding that now was because I had 10 years behind me of all the failures and just constantly dwelling over it to figure out, okay, what is the point? What is that consumer knows? And like, you shouldn't expect to know it off the bat, but I guarantee you within 5 years of you owning a business, you will know that answer and you'll be able to help other people find that answer as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I also wanted to thank you guys for speaking to us. I really appreciate it. I had a question for you, Gabi. You mentioned that you're going on now your 8th restaurant, and I was wondering for the restaurant industry specifically, only around half of restaurants survive longer than 3 or 4 years. So I was wondering how you've navigated that industry so effectively, and what's helped your journey on that end in the restaurant industry.
I think someone mentioned it earlier. Being a smaller business, we are able to pivot. Like, I think that's the strongest thing we have. Like, I am able to tell my manager, call him and say, hey, we're not selling enough of the shredded beef today. Stop the production of shredded beef at our commissary kitchen. Like, I don't have investors that I mean, it's just not our model, so that I have to respond to, or I make the decisions. I call my business partner, hey, do you agree with me? Yes, okay, make the call. You know, we can respond quickly to things that are changing around us. And then the best example, I think, is COVID, right? COVID hit, and it was such a weird, uncertain time. You know, my business partner wasn't particularly scared of anything, so he just went to the restaurant, and I stayed home trying to figure out what our next step was going to be to survive and to not have to let go of anybody. And we pivoted, and we closed the restaurant for 2 days, and like 3 days, like on the 3rd day, we had already pivoted, and we were getting orders in for people buying our shredded meat, shredded chicken, our beans by the pound. And we called our web developer and we said, hey, we're gonna start delivering food to people in their homes. And going back to our roots, which is how we got our business going in the first place, we have a sister company, and that's all we did. That's how we got started. We were delivering to Virginia, Maryland, and DC Venezuelan products that people weren't able to find here. So we had that experience, and we said, let's go back to our roots. This is something that we're not able to do today because we don't have time for it, because we have, at the time, I guess, 5 restaurants. but we have the experience. Let's build a website and have all these customers on our email subscriber list get an email saying, hey, we know you love our beef, we know you love our chicken, you love our beans, let me sell that to you in bulk. And people were going crazy. They were stuffing their fridge because they didn't know, the world was ending, right? And we were getting orders. We were doing better during COVID than we were doing at the restaurant. We were getting orders in for $200, $300, people stuffing their fridge with our shredded chicken and shredded beef. So I think being able to pivot quickly is something that not every entrepreneur has. You might have to get a bunch of people on a board to sign off on. I only have to fight with one other person, and he's my business partner. And he trusts me enough now, 11 years later, to be like, yeah, Gabi, you know what you're doing. Yes, whatever. That's something a blessing that I have that I don't take for granted, because it has allowed us to continue growing our business without many disruptions, if that makes any sense.
All right, so we have snacks in the back, so you guys can taste this amazing food that these guys produce, and you'll be able to connect with them one-on-one. But we've got time for one more question. Ma'am, please.
Hi, thank you so much. This was a great session. I am actually an alumni of AU as well. I went to the School of International Service. My friend, who happens to be here on vacation, had already registered from Nigeria because she knew she was coming. And so she came into town, and so today she was like, let's go. And I was like, where are we going? And so she dragged me here, and it's crazy that it took an out-of-town guest for me to finally step back on the campus of AU after graduating over 20 years ago. But great session. And my heritage and my husband's heritage is Nigerian, and his aunt has a Nigerian restaurant here in DC. And one of the things that she has had to deal with, and I think a lot of probably ethnic businesses have to deal with this, is justifying the price that you charge for your food, because it's almost like it's not worth what you're the price point, and I feel like a lot of ethnic business owners have to prove, in terms of labor, in terms of ingredients, and then add on top of that DC overhead costs and staff and insurance and all that stuff. It is worth it. And so just seeing from my husband's aunt's experience, what she's had to deal with, again, to justify charging what she charges for the food that, she produces, which is excellent. And nobody would have a problem paying $25, $30, somewhere else, but it's it's optics, right? And so just wanted you to speak a little bit on some of those specific challenges with pricing and ethnic businesses.
Yeah, I get that a lot from the Venezuelan customers, mainly because they say, hey, but a pack of the corn flour is $3, and they start doing all this math, right? And I'm like, go on, and I'm like, okay, you forgot this. You forgot this. Back in the day, like I think like 6-7 years ago, there's like a group on Facebook, like Venezuelans in DC. And people would put on there, how can Arepa's own charge? Because we're the only Venezuelan restaurant here right now, like how can they charge $8 for a beef arepa? And I would just watch the comments, right? And back in the day, I would go in there and explain, my rent is $20,000. I pay so much in gas, so much in electric. My insurance is this much. I have to pay to play the music that you're listening to. You want to come watch the soccer game, that's $600 for the rights to play the game. And the list goes on and on and on, right? And ultimately what I've learned is, the customers that are going to support you are going to be there no matter what. The people that have seen us grow from that business where I would sell cheese out of my living room, I bought a fridge, it was on the rug in my living room. People would come in my house and buy stuff from me. Those people that have seen us grow can truly appreciate the fact that we're still around. You want a Venezuelan restaurant in the heart of DC, you can walk to the White House, for God's sakes. That is not going to be cheap. But I don't like to say we're expensive either. We try to price. We're not arbitrary when we price our items. There's thought that goes into it. There's an Excel spreadsheet. There's margin edge. Look it up. It's like a costing thing. People think that we're being arbitrary. A lot of, I don't know if your aunt's, restaurant, like the Nigerian community says, oh, it's a get rich quick scheme. And listen, like we get that all the time. And I'm by no means rich. Like I just bought my first condo 3 years ago. It's not I paid off my student loans 11 years. It's all in their head, and it's unconscious bias, really, because they have no idea what it takes to run a restaurant. So ultimately, we stay true to what we do, and we focus a lot. Yeah, the Venezuelans are going to come because this is a piece of home, but our main focus here is to make sure that we're an accessible brand and we're explaining what we're all about to those folks who have never had a taste of Venezuela, and that's where our main focus is.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that was a great answer, right? It's easy to criticize when you don't understand the math, right? But it's our job as entrepreneurs to animate our value propositions, right? And make the case through the food for the pricing. All right, I think that was really helpful. I hope you guys found some inspiration in it amid a sort of like weird feeling Earth Day. So thank you for sharing this blessed holiday with us, Earth Day. And please stick around to try the snacks, connect with our entrepreneurs, and please join me in thanking them for their time.